Welcome to another edition of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. How are you? I know it's been a while and I apologize. Let me get right to it. My computer, which is 9 years old, is not working as well as I'm hoping, and don't have the funds right now to get a new one, so just bear with me. That's all I ask. Whew, you doing well? Doing okay? I'm home and trying to entertain Otis, our dog, and it's not working well. If you have not had the opportunity, please, the new book will be coming out. I know I keep talking, I keep saying it. It's going to happen. Please go to the website, mydadsadvicebook.com, mydadsadvicebook.com. Order your book, and you know what? Just for you, here's what I'll do. Shh, don't tell anybody. Shh. I will personally autograph it for you. You will get an autographed copy. How's that? Deal? Deal. Ay. Wow. I am just Jason Kreidman of Dad's University is on this episode, and if you've been a regular listener, well, thank you. And Jason has been on the podcast before. He has a new online program that, if in the show notes, you'll see the his LinkedIn link. So check him out and all the other stuff. But great stuff. And I love having Jason on. I mean, he's one of those guys. Hey, how you doing? One of those guys where I see him on social. I just see him no matter what feed, and he's bringing great content. Okay. All right. What else is going on? Thanks for asking. If this is your first time, I apologize. I'm going to apologize a lot, apparently, that I'm rambling. I am I love doing this, and I would love to be like John Lee Dumas. He does a podcast. He's got a new one every day. That's what I want to do. That's my hopes, my goals, my dreams. So we talked about the book. So as of lately, here's what's going on in my own personal life. Okay. So again, if you've been a regular listener, you know we are a blended family. 2 bonus daughters, my son, and we have the oldest is in college. Her sister is in college, and the boy, as the girls like to call him, he just turned 18. Already know where he's going to college, and actually this episode we're going to talk about my anxiety of what's going on, and it's been an emotional roller coaster these past couple weeks. So my son, our son, the boy, played his last home game of hockey, and it was hard to watch because he did not want to leave the ice. Every one of the his teammates, when they were coming off the ice, he was giving them a high five or fist bump, and I'm like, it's hard to describe. It's a really nice. There's 3 rinks in this facility, and so their last game was in this main rink. And I just happened to be in this corner watching this and just bawling my eyes out. And it's hard to believe that 18 years have gone by this fast. And I know a lot of parents out there who might agree with me, or others that haven't gone through this, or say, suck it up, buttercup. I don't know. But it's been, these past couple weeks have been really difficult on me because, again, realizing that he's going to be graduating high school. We'll have some of the summer. He and I are taking a trip to visit his college, and I know he'll be working like a madman, doing what he does, and then he's off. And so it's that empty nester syndrome thingy. I don't know. So again, it's just been realization that we are coming to an end of a chapter. I don't want to call it an end. I'm just saying this chapter is ending, and then a new one is going to begin. Did I mention my book? Anyway, I'm just messing. So that's it. That's where I've been these past couple weeks. I have been a mess. We did a senior night, and I was a mess there with Scott Moreau, who's been on this podcast. He and I were just beside ourselves because not only is Scott one of Connor's coaches, he's a dear friend, and he's just, he understood it. He's gone through it before with his son Jason. So it was nice to have that camaraderie. We were all gathered on the ice. Even Otis. We even brought Otis on the hockey rink. I don't know if we were supposed to. I didn't care. He's a good wing dog. We love Otis. So anyway. So that's me rambling on, being a dad. And, I did get, and I'm going to probably get hate mail for this. And that's fine. But in the hockey parent group chat, one of the moms put up there that she wanted to make T-shirts for a lot of our teenagers are old enough to now play adult hockey, and she was going to make a T-shirt of something. And I said, well, what about the dads? And she's like, oh, they'll be in phase 2. And I'm like, I really, and I'm serious when I say this, I want to start a clothing line for hockey dads. I'm serious about that. And if somebody wants to steal that idea, go ahead and steal it. That's okay. But I'm serious. I think that's going to need to happen. Because here's the thing, and here's me on my soapbox. And this is going to happen. At the time of this recording, we're going to have one more hockey tournament for the end of the season. And I guarantee we will go to the event, and it's being hosted in a couple of different rinks. But I guarantee that whoever is running the booth for the hoodies, they're not going to have any embroidery, or what do you call it when you put a hot press thingy on the hoodies. You can put names and numbers, the transfer stuff. I guarantee, because I've yet to see it, anything that says hockey dad or goalie dad, you just see hockey mom. So it's very frustrating that, we dads, and again, I'm on my soapbox, I get it, we dads are left out occasionally. All right. So I digress. So like I said, Jason Kreidman is on this episode, Dad's University. You'll find the links in the show notes. Check him out on LinkedIn, on the Instagram. That's the only 2 places I hang out. The Twitter. Oh my gosh. I was just reading, I think it was on the Huffington Post, about crazy things that kids say or something. Dad's University, you'll see Dad You in a lot of those articles. So, again, Jason's doing awesome work to promote positive fatherhood. So there you go. Please support me on my book, My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m., my newest book. Go to the website, mydadsadvicebook.com, mydadsadvicebook.com. There you go. I'm done rambling. Have a great time doing whatever you're doing while you're listening to this episode, and hug your kids. That's all I want to say. Is just hug your kids. Oh, before I forget, as Terry Crews would say, your success is my success. Now go hug your kids. I think the first topic, Jason, let's talk about right now in our world being overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at from the standpoint of I have a soon to be 18-year-old, and I want to cram as much time as I can with him because, well, number one, he doesn't live with us. Number two, he is constantly either working or playing hockey.
Yep.
And number three is, like I said, he's going to be turning 18, Jason, and he's already accepted, already knows where he's going to college. We're here in Colorado. He's going to the wonderful tropical warm weather of the UP. So
Yeah.
I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed right now, Jason, because like I said, I want to control time with him, but I can't control his time. And I was able to spend time with him this past weekend because he had a hockey tournament. But I'm panicking, Jason. I'm freaking out, going. And my wife has been laughing at me because she's already gone through this with one daughter. The other daughter, luckily, goes to college locally here. But she's laughing at me going, yeah, been there, done that, got the T-shirt.
Right. Well, I think overwhelm is very highly correlated and related to expectations. So we have to kind of talk about both at the same time. And in all parts of our life, we set ourselves up with expectations. And so your expectation is that you get to spend a certain amount of time with your child, that your expectation is that you're worried you're going to have less time in the future. You know, these are all expectations that you have. And as a result of those expectations, if they are not met, or the striving for the expectation, sometimes it becomes overwhelming. And you know, you can extrapolate that to so many things. So part of it is maybe taking a step back and analyzing your expectations, you know, and that's something that I do all the time because I expect too many things are going to happen too much, and I'm going to be able to do too many things, and these many like I'm guilty of that every day. And as a result of it, I often feel overwhelmed. And versus, you know, when you're on vacation and your expectation is that, oh, I need to make the 1:00 yoga class. And you make the 1:00 yoga class, you're not overwhelmed.
No.
There's no expectations. And so, which meanwhile, that sounds really great right now to go to a tropical place
and do yoga. Yeah.
As my mind starts to wander. But yeah, that's part of it is I have that same issue, and I absolutely understand where you're coming from. You know, having my children are a little bit younger, but it's that, oh no, I only have so much time. And what am I going to do with this time? And I have all these expectations of what our relationship should be and the things that we should accomplish and how much are we going to, you know, what are we going to be able to do together? And so, yeah, your feelings and emotions are real. It's how do we manage those expectations so that you can enjoy that journey, you know, so that you can enjoy, even if it's a little amount of time that you have with him, and not be so worried about the future and the overwhelm that, you know, you're currently having.
Well, it's part of it is that whole empty nester, and that is you want to be in control. You want to, you know, be I don't want to say helicopter parent. I'm not a helicopter parent. I'm more of a glider parent. You know, come
That's
and go.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And a lot of parents are going to be going through this, going forward again, when they become seniors in high school. And my son, this is a prime example. My son said to me this past weekend, he goes, "Oh my gosh," he just realized he'd been playing hockey for the organization for 11 years.
Wow.
And I said to him, "Dude, you think those 11 years went by fast? Guess what? These next 4 years are going to go by fast." And so
Right.
I, I, I guess the part of it being overwhelmed is, as a dad, I haven't been able to spend, a lot of time with him because being divorced, only having him every other weekend. Have I prepared him for life? But at the same time, Jason, I got to let him fail. I have to let him just
Of course.
face plant, especially in the UP. There'll be a lot of, luckily, snow. So when he face plants, at least he'll be nice and cold to wake up and go, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that," or
Yeah.
get back up and get and learn from those failures.
Yeah, you hope that you've taught him some resilience and maybe the process of recovering. You can't avoid those mistakes, or you can. I guess you can teach a little bit of to tell them how to avoid some mistakes and things. But ultimately, it's teaching them that process of the process of resilience, the process of bouncing back, the process of overcoming difficulties, finding answers, that kind of thing. And I'm sure you have, and part of it, I'm sure the feeling that you probably have is so much of your involvement with him has been probably the sports and the hockey, and that relationship that you have, you really enjoy that. And so it changes, and any kind of change like that is difficult. I can imagine that that's a difficult transition. Again, you've made these multiple transitions within your life, and this is another one. And yeah, I could see how that is overwhelming, as you said. That's a big one, but at the same time, it's exciting. I think it's how you look at it. You get to frame it and define it how you want. And the fact is that you've put in this effort and time and such, and you kind of get to see even more fruits of your labor.
It is overwhelming, but like you said, at the same time, it's funny. What popped in my head was recently I gave a presentation on the difference between good stress and bad stress,
Mm-hmm.
and even some people would say they lose a job. I mean, we're in those times right now where people are losing their jobs, and that's to some people that's a negative stress. But if you want to flip it, it could be a positive because maybe that's not the job you enjoyed. Maybe you want to look for something else. Maybe you want to start your own business and that excites you. And like you're saying, the new journey does excite me. But again, I haven't lost sleep over it yet. Not until he's states away. And I'm excited for him, but at the same time, Jason, I'm like, all right, he better not be drinking. He better not be, smoking. He better not be. It's out of my control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I imagine, and my kids aren't at that age yet, so I've got a lot to learn in that area. But I have siblings that have older kids, and understanding that it's a whole other transition that you go through, and your worries are different. Your anxieties are different, and yeah, it's all how we frame it again. It's we define, or we create definitions of things in our brain and of how things are going to go, what things mean. So much of the work that I do is around our mindset and how we approach situations, way that we think of fatherhood and how we define it. The tactical stuff is great. Hey, when you're talking, this is how you talk, and or when you're in this situation, this is how you do it. But there's so much about how we think about things and our mind and how we approach it. And you and I were talking just briefly before the call about controlling our emotions, or taking responsibility for our emotions. And it's sort of similar in that it's taking responsibility for how we define things. And so you have the choice of defining how this situation is going to be for you. It can be hell. You could drive yourself nuts every day worrying about stuff. But you could also look at it and say, okay, this is exciting. This is another opportunity for growth. Why am I having discomfort? And sort of talking to yourself in that way. And that's the part for me is really interesting, of these different aspects of our lives and how we can grow from them by questioning what's going on with us, if that makes sense.
Well, it makes sense. And I'm going through Ryan Holiday's book, The Daily Stoic.
Yep.
And I cannot recommend that book enough, Jason. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that anxiety that we go through on a daily basis are the stories we're already putting in our head that are not going to even come to fruition.
Yeah. The worst thing that happened to me never happened.
Yeah.
That's, I live that all the time. I mean, I'm better at it now. I mean, my anxiety and stress is different now than it used to be. I would say it was more angst and anxiety versus now sort of as ambition and that kind of stress. So it's just morphed into something that's a little bit more productive, but it doesn't go away.
Well, what was the aha moment for you, Jason, to make a change?
Blood pressure. Honestly, going to the doctor and realizing, I take such good care of myself, or what I'd like to think, the way that I eat, I meditate, I exercise, I live a, pretty healthy lifestyle, get plenty of rest, but the stress is probably my kryptonite, and that's the thing that's going to be the most detrimental to my, my life out of anything. And so I said, I just had said, wow, there's all these things that I'm doing right, but there's this one big elephant in the room. And so, yeah, I just knew that I have to make a change. It wasn't really an option. If I'm going to be around, I'm going to have to change the way that I think about things and the way that I do things. And it's still happening. It's still happening. I wouldn't say it's a struggle. It's more of a fight. Because I'm not struggling. But my, my nature is not to be relaxed and just go with the flow. You ask my wife, that's not who I am. I love to think that I'm that way. And then why I meditate and I do yoga. I mean, I did yoga this morning and meditated, but that doesn't mean that 5 minutes before we're talking, I'm making sure that things are ready. I'm pushing things. I don't move slow. I move very fast, but can I do it in a more positive way and look at it more positively? And so that's a journey. That's a journey that we're on.
Well, you talk about positive thoughts. And, one of the things that I've had to remind myself, and the one thing that helps is, I've decided I am no longer going to call my day job the dreaded day job, because I want to, as much as I don't enjoy it, I want to change it. I have to change my mindset. So now I call my day job my silent partner, because um, just like you're running a business, you have dad's university, you have, things that you're trying to build and to bring income in to be able to achieve what you want to achieve, for not only just for yourself, Jason, but for your family and for your podcast listeners, for your audience. And so I heard this, somebody say, even though you don't like your job, it's it's your silent partner. And I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I am more grateful because of that. I am more grateful because even though from, Monday to Friday, I'm not home. I'm only home on the weekends. But because of that job, because of my silent partner, what I get in return is hotel points, airline miles, rental car points. Those are things that I will be able to use. So, matter of fact, when my son and I go to Hancock, Michigan, to go do a campus tour, it's not going to really cost me anything because I get to use
Right.
those airline miles because of my silent partner. I am grateful. I am so grateful to have that job, that silent partner. And again, I have to remind myself about being grateful. And I think, and I say this to people on a daily basis. I don't want to say that I'm wearing, rose-colored glasses. I see the world. I see what's going on. But we do need, in these times, we do need more positivity and gratitude
Mhm.
in all of our lives, in our daily lives.
I think rose-colored glasses and wearing that's wonderful. I mean, I don't see a negative to that. The idea, I mean, I would say that's how my wife is. My wife sees the positive in everything. She wakes up in the morning and the first thing she does is open up the blinds so the sun can shine through. Where I'm like, close the blinds, leave it dark. That's why I married her. It was something it's a very attractive thing. Now it's not me in most cases. I mean, I'm happy and such, but like that's just her nature. And she looks at things in a very positive way and sort of ignores a lot of times the negative. And it's beautiful. It is a beautiful thing to think like that. And so, I mean, sometimes I'm jealous, other times I'm upset because I want the blinds closed. But for the most part, it's a very attractive thing. And so you're right. Gratitude is something that just, it has to be practiced if you want to be happy. I've often, I say that gratitude's the antidote to depression. You can't be grateful and depressed at the same time. It just doesn't work that way. And so I know for myself, when I start getting in these little ruts where I start feeling sorry for myself and start looking at all these things that I have to do, my focus, whether it's the meditation I'm doing or, some of the talks that I would start doing, it's about gratitude. You're right. And it can quickly turn things around, and everybody has different perspectives on it too. I mean, what I'm grateful for might be completely different. And people look at other people's lives and go, well, of course, if you look, you have this, and this, so I'd be grateful too. But you don't know what's going on in everybody's life, and that's the hard part. I mean, granted, social media makes you think that everyone's having a wonderful life, but
Yes.
I've got, family members who are getting really old and need help. And I've got, things going on. We have a construction zone at my house. I have got the kids that are trying to, homeschool and it's all kinds of chaos. I've got my business stuff, which is frustrating. If this does not, like, there's so many things, but yet, I really can't complain. Especially when I take a step back and look at the big picture. I mean, it's not, there are people that are absolutely suffering, that are having some extreme difficulties, have family members who are dying. There's, as we speak, there's insane power outages and issues. There's a pandemic. There's racial issues. We have so many much bigger problems going on and that people are dealing with that, when I take a look and take a step back, I do feel very grateful for the situation that I'm in,
I love when you're talking about your wife and the blinds, because you and I
are you the up, turn the blinds up kind of thing, or you put them up?
I have to, even as I travel, I have to have the hotel room has to be dark. I have to have darkness.
Yep.
But as of lately, especially this week, I was like, my wife really doesn't like that. She likes the blinds open. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And I don't know if she's going to realize it or not. I don't care, because it's, again, it's about not always having to, show the world what's going on. It's the silent partner type thing. And so I'm trying to change that aspect, going, you know what? This is what she likes. I'm going to keep it that way.
Yeah.
And if it makes her happy, it makes her happy. That's fine. I mean, this week I've been I'm not a good cook. I enjoy it, Jason. But since I'm home this week, I've been making dinner for my wife. Comes home, and I say to her, "Don't worry about dishes. Don't worry about cleaning up." It's those things that I enjoy doing for other people. I'm grateful that I get to be home this week. I am grateful that my wife comes home and dinner's ready. Does it taste good? It looks great on the plate. That's my philosophy, Jason. If it looks good, hopefully it tastes good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's you're sounds like what you're doing is working. So that's a good thing.
Well, the other thing I want to, you're talking about what's going on in the world, and my grandmother, who's 98,
Wow,
I believe, still has all her faculties. I love her to death. She pretty much raised me, because my mom worked 2 jobs, went to night school, and so. But the one thing that drives my grandmother nuts is when I say to her, "There's a difference between the world and my world."
mm-hmm.
Yes, I can have empathy and sympathy for, as you were talking, Jason, we have people that don't have power. We have, what's going on, recently at the Capitol. I have to take a stand and take a step back and go, is that affecting my world, my kids, my family? That's why, when my grandmother says to me, well, you need to be informed, I agree, but I don't need to have the news on 24/7. I've got other things that I want to be doing, and other things that, when it comes to worrying, I'm going to worry because it's dealing with my world and not the world.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic, because there are things that we can impact. I mean, obviously, when you have a vote, you get to make your vote and choose, but it was interesting. I was talking with someone when all the political chaos was going on, and he's like, yeah, I mean, we've got to win in Georgia. And he's saying we. And he's in California. He has no vote. He has no say, and it was just an interesting, I mean, I didn't want to have the conversation very long, but it was an interesting thing in that, people get invested in things and what they care about, and that's up to them, but obviously that's something that, occupies their time and their mental fitness and everything else. I choose not to do that. It's just not my choice. For other people, if that's important to them, that's fine. But as you've said, it's like I have so many things I worry about already that I can't control, that I'm trying to get rid of those. That I'm really trying to eliminate the worry of the things that I don't have any control over. And that's part of my own, mental fitness, to try to, improve my situation by saying, okay, do I have control over this situation that I'm doing? No. Okay, well then let's not worry about that. I just feel like my brain and my emotion only has so much capacity, and it's already full. And so I've got to dump things out if I want new and better and more enjoyable things to come in. And so that's kind of the way that I look at it. I can only think and feel so much, and I'm full. I'm full.
Well,
maybe that's the overwhelm.
The thing that, before we start recording, the thing that you were talking about, so you have Jimmy there helping you out. And with Jimmy there, what is Jimmy doing? Well, he's helping you get time back. Mm-hmm. And that's how, when you're running a business such as yourself, Jason, that's what you want. You want to make sure that you have time, that you're not losing time. Time is such a currency.
Yeah.
And it's the currency you don't get back. And it goes back to, being dads. And, you want to spend as much time as you can with your kids, but at the end of the day, you're still building a business. And without building that business, without bringing income in, you might find yourself on the streets. So it's to me, when you're running a business, looking at all aspects of how can I make sure that I'm not wasting time on stupid stuff.
Yeah, and I think of that even with my kids too. I think as my kids were a little bit younger, I had more, and I still have some, but I had more anxiety about the amount of time that I was spending with my kids. Whereas I've grown and they have grown, I see that becomes quality time rather than quantity of time. And now you had said, you see your child less. But, for me, I used to feel very guilty when I was up late at the office recording, videos and podcasts about being a dad, and I'm not home for dinner. And I had that sort of, internal struggle of trying to be this great dad, balance that with talking about being a great dad, and yet what I've come to realize so much more is like the time that I spend just needs to be quality. And I've, looking even at research about this and stuff, the quantity of the time really doesn't matter. Whether you spend 2 hours a week or 7 hours a week, it is really about the quality of that time. And so it's about being present. It's about, having meaningful conversations. It's about, affection. It's making the time that you do have, and especially if you're a father or a parent that doesn't have a lot of time with your children, it's just making that time count, and not necessarily stressing and having the anxiety that you're not spending enough. And I think for many dads, especially the dads I work with, it's a big struggle. You're constantly feeling guilty that, you have ambition and you want to do other things, or even you want your own free time, yet, maybe now I'm not spending enough time with my kids. Now, that doesn't mean you ignore your children by any means. Spending time with them is a great thing. But I think it is that we can shift our minds a little bit to say, hey, you know what? Instead of me just making sure I'm there, but I'm on my phone, I'm going to put my phone down, and for an hour, I'm playing with my kid, interacting, and it's going to be a great hour. You know, that's where the quality comes in, and that's the importance of that.
Well, all I kept thinking is the Harry Chapin song, Cats in the Cradle. And it's funny because I was vacuuming yesterday, and for some reason that song popped in my head because I started thinking more about, again, my anxiety with my son. Did I spend enough time with him? And this kid is such a hard worker. I mean, like, for example, last summer, he was working like 3 jobs. There was months that we did not see him because he was working. And I'm like, holy crap, that was me. That was me being on the road. What have I done? But again, to what we've talked about before, to put it in a positive way, he's got a great work ethic.
Yep.
And that's how I have to look at it. I have to look at it that he is working hard. People see that. Give you another.
I was going to say, as an 18-year-old now, have you had those kinds of conversation where you actually ask him how he feels about you?
Yes. When was it? It was less than a year ago.
Because I won't ask too often, but I do occasionally ask my children, and like, when we're having a serious conversation, and just say, hey, I just kind of want to check in and ask, like, are there things that you feel like I could improve upon, as a dad? Are there things that you feel like, and it's interesting because even I was talking with my son, and I was saying, sometimes I don't feel like I'm not spending enough time. He goes, Dad, I think the time we spend together is great. Like, he had no issue with it. And that made me feel so much better, because I had that anxiety about, am I spending enough time? And so that's part of it too, is checking in with the child and having those conversations to say, hey, listen, I'm feeling this way a little bit. Is this something that you're feeling? Or you don't even preface it with your own feelings, and you just say, hey, how do you feel about this? Is this something, and his response was, I mean, I love spending time with you. If you want to, we can do more, but like, I definitely don't feel like you're not spending enough time with me. And that was, that was great. That was a great response for me. As much as I can think negative, think positive, think whatever, the ultimate is to check in with the child.
Yeah, he was a captive audience. I was taking him back to his mom's. And I did that. I said to him, I go, how can I be a better dad? What areas can I improve on? And it's funny because there are times where, like, especially after either a baseball game or a hockey game, he would be nonstop a chatterbox. But I know there are times where he just wants to be in his own head. And so I was afraid that I said to him, I go, you can be open and honest. Okay. And so he said, no, I'm very happy with our relationship. And I said, is there anything I can do? He goes, no, we're good. And it wasn't one of those, Jason, where like, no, we're good. I really felt that he meant it. He meant, Dad, we're good. Yep. We are good. So, yeah, I mean, that is such a great question to ask your kids. And again, my thought is it really does have to be presented in a...
You really have to be curious.
Yes.
You have to be honestly curious. Yeah. You have to, you're asking because you really do want to know.
Right.
You are really willing to do it, not that you're searching for a certain answer. Like, I really did want to know like what I could do better and what I could, improve upon. And there's been other times where they have said something, they may have said, well, sometimes when I come to you to ask this, I feel like but and they may give me the right answer, or they give me an answer that is not wonderful to hear, but it's important to hear. And I have a son and a daughter, and they're both very different in what they desire and their amount of attention and requirements and such. They're just very different. And so just because one's doing okay doesn't mean the other one is. But overall, that's something that I do on a regular basis. And when, and having that one-on-one time, which actually next weekend, I'm going to be one-on-one with my daughter for a couple of days. We're going to have one of those talks again. And I'm looking forward to it.
So let me ask this, Jason, in your view, your opinion, how do you broach that question? So if, other parents out there, other dads and moms, and they hear this, what has worked for you to be able to have that open dialogue?
Well, I mean, it started from when they were very young to know that, when they there's many things, but I talk to them a lot. I have those conversations, but also when they tell me things, they're not judged. So regardless of what they're telling me, I say, thank you for telling me that. It's, I really appreciate you trusting me with that information. So, they can tell me whatever they want and they're not going to feel judged. It's safe because I'm not, I'm not going to punish them. I'm not going to, do whatever. And so for me, those conversations are really easy to have because I've been doing them for so long. If somebody hasn't had that conversation, I do think that there's really only one way, and that's just being direct. Kids don't need the BS, and you say, hey, listen, I love you very much. I want to be a great dad or a great mom, if you're listening. And I really value what you think and what you say. And I just would love any sort of input. If you feel like there's things that I could do better or that I can improve upon, what do you think that would be? And if they go, well, I don't know. And you say, well, if you did know, what would you say? And if your child doesn't feel safe to talk to you, then they're not going to tell you because they might think you'll get upset. Or if, if you've been responsible or they've been responsible for your emotions, and you've gotten upset because of things that they say and they do, they may not feel as comfortable or safe saying that. So you kind of have to, if you're in that situation, then you'd probably have to preface it with saying, listen, there is nothing you can say that's going to make me upset or think any differently of you. I love you unconditionally, no matter what. I really am asking you because I want to be a better father. That's it. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Does it matter where you do this? So for example, it's in my mind, to use the example of, and it's only fresh in my mind because a new podcast came out and I was talking about this, and that is as a divorced dad, dating after divorce, when you're meeting your kids or meeting your new friend for the first time, I keep telling people that you can't do it in like at somebody's house or apartment. It needs to be,
comfort. Yeah, well, it's definitely zone. One-on-one. I mean, definitely one-on-one. No question. Don't have other people there, siblings, other partners or friends, it's only in a situation where it's one-on-one. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And I agree. And, and I think I know that's where you're going.
And the older the child is, sometimes it needs to be in a more casual environment. You know, if you're playing sports with your child, or if you're playing like a board game or something, like it's not like, hey, I want to talk with you, so let's sit down. Like, you don't need to have that like demeanor.
Right.
It's more of a casual conversation, just like, hey, gosh, I love spending time with you. You know, I've been thinking about just really trying to be better. What do you think I could do to try to be, try to be better? Or, yeah, I mean, you could word it however you want, but you don't want to make it I mean, especially if you have a teen, or an older kid, you're just not like, hey, let's sit down at the end of the bed,
Yeah.
that's the worst thing that can happen. It's like, hey, no, we're going for a walk, and like you're in the middle of something, enjoying it, or, and then if you feel a little bit of pushback, then stop, or you say, well, but even that, like, the hope is that you've been doing that since they were very little. You've been able to have those conversations, and even if it's uncomfortable for you as the parent, who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, I say that with dads, like whether it's affection or having the sex talk, or it doesn't matter. Who cares? If it's uncomfortable for you, that doesn't matter. That's not an excuse. It's like your children need to have those you have to have those conversations with your kids. And so, swallow your ego or your discomfort and do it anyways.
Yeah. And I mean, this past Monday, I had a conversation with my son. We were at lunch between games, and I said, "What are your expectations when you go to college?" And he was just like, "I just want to learn." And I said, "Well, you understand." And again, I really didn't want to drive the conversation. I wanted him to bring his own thoughts in, but he just wasn't in that frame of mind, which was fine. I mean, he was more focused on the next game, but that's okay. I still wanted to have
Right.
at least a little bit of a dialogue with him. And so I said, well, understand, you're going to have a different kind of peer pressure from high school to college.
Yep.
And he goes, I get it. Don't worry, Dad. I get it. And it's funny because I don't know. And this is the funny thing. My bonus daughter, who's similar ages as my son, the two of them are always in contact with each other through social media. And I love it because it tells me that they truly are, regardless of blood relation or not, they are brother and sister, and they get along so well. So from time to time, I have to go to her and say, so what's going on with Connor? And she's like, what are you asking? I'm like, well, is he dating? He goes, no. So, that's, those things are fine with me. I mean, I'm not ready for that yet. But like you were saying earlier, having those conversations early so they're comfortable having conversations with you as they get older, because there's going to be a time where they're going to be calling you, and it's not to say, hey, I just got an A, it's I just got pulled over.
Yeah. Right. And you have to be careful how you react. You have to say, thank you for telling me that. Not, what are you doing? Pulling up, So when your child calls you the next morning and says, Dad, I got really drunk and I can't believe what I did, blah, 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 blah. It's not the time for a lecture. It is the time to say, hey, I really appreciate you telling me that. I know the situations are hard, but like, that's it. Because if you want them to ever tell you again of what's going on in their life, they don't want your advice. If they call you and say, hey, Dad, I'm in this situation, what do you think I should do? Then they're asking for your advice. But if they're telling you something that happened, they're not asking you for your advice. And I think that as fathers too, we have the problem of providing advice when we're not asked.
So true.
I wouldn't even say as fathers.
Guilty.
It's as men.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
our significant other will tell us something about what happened with her today at work or with a friend, and we give advice, which that's not why she told us. You know, she told us because she wants to communicate and share that information. And so with your children, especially as they get older, if you want to have any of that trust and for them to tell you again, then you say, thank you for telling me that and trusting me with that information. And you say, hey, I hope you're safe. You know, that's it. Like, you're not going to convince them to not do something. You know, your hope is, you know, you could have a conversation at a different point to say, hey, I just wanted to check in with you. Like, how are things going with that? I know, you know, you'd had some difficulties about, you know, whatever, but the time to like give a lecture is not then. And I think that that's a really important part of, you know, growing and maturing. And the other part is, you know, I trust your decisions. You know, you're a smart kid. I think, you know, you obviously, I can't control what you do. And, you know, you need to be safe. Actually, you might not even want to say you need to be safe, but that's hard. That's really hard for us to do, for a lot of us, if we haven't like had that experience and that practice, to not judge it. You know, what were you doing to drink? How stupid. What a dumb thing. You know, you could have gotten yourself, like, how is that helping? You know, and that's the same conversation that you should have had when the child threw the ball at the window when they were 7, but they came to you and told you. That's the same thing that should have happened there. It's like, hey, thank you for telling me. Hey, let's figure out a way that we can solve this. You know, we've got a broken window. It was a mistake. What do you think we should do? You know, whatever. I mean, that's the kind of teaching that I do. You know, I had mentioned to you, I have I do my dad university, you know, videos and podcasts and everything else, but I now have a program, a specific comprehensive program that dads can go through. And those are the things we talk about. We talk about, you know, how to respond to your children, how to discipline, what's involved in that. You know, how do you change your mental game? There's just all kinds of things that I think as dads, we just don't know. You know, nobody's giving us this information. So now we have it.
Yeah, I mean, I look back at, you know, there's so many books out there on parenting, and everybody's situation is different.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I got so involved in creating, you know, the world of blended families, because my wife and I didn't find, there was no good books out there.
Right.
I mean, one guy, you know, claimed to be the blended family guru, but he's been married for X amount of years and has not walked in my shoes.
Right.
And so the thing is, we men don't like to hear other advice from other men at times because we think we know what we're doing.
Yeah, I pose this question a lot to like groups and things of, how confident are you in your parenting? And it's overwhelming how confident men are in their parenting, yet confidence does not equal competence.
Ooh.
And you know, the other thing I will say is, people will say, well, there's all different kinds of types, and you know, who are you to say? You're right, but I can tell you there's a ton of dads, especially, that I think people would think are wonderful dads, and they probably are, with the aspect that they love their children, they care about their children deeply, they spend time with their children. But that doesn't mean that they are communicating in a real effective way to build resilience to their kids, to establish self-acceptance and the self-esteem to their children. Like, that's what's interesting when people, and I just recently was having some conversations about this. When people say, oh, I can't believe that kid went blah, 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 or did this and this, they come from such a good family. Well, it appears to be a good family. And it may be, depending on what your definition is, but did they teach the child certain skills to be able to manage themselves, to be able to handle themselves in situations, to be able to say what they feel instead of what their peers are asking them to do? I mean, there's so many things that we think, or I should say that we don't think about, that on the outside, it appears to be a great father, a great dad, loving husband, blah, blah, whatever. But at the same time, they're not necessarily doing the skills and the techniques and the things that really make a difference for the child. And so I always question that, because, somebody had said, well, you can raise your kid right and they can still turn out to be a monster. No, I disagree with that. I think at a certain point, certainly you don't have control, but that could mean that they have other influences that somehow come into their lives, or that they, your likelihood of creating a monster is drastically less when you parent in a good way. And that means having those conversations. It means responding like the way that I just mentioned. Like, those are things that matter, and how you communicate with your kids. And so that's what I try to teach.
Go back, Jason. You talked about, as part of Dad University, the mental aspect. What do you mean by that, about teaching the mental aspect?
Yeah, I think so most parenting programs have some aspect of like tactical stuff, like, hey, when your children are acting this way, this is the way to handle it. Or, you have sibling rivalry, this is the reason they're doing that. And the child's acting, there's so much of like that psychological stuff that's common. I mean, there's common themes and subjects of, if you've ever heard of like positive parenting and things like that, and they're excellent. The difference of what I've added and what I teach is really when you mention the mindset. And the mindset happens to be is how you think and feel and show up as a father. And that has a huge impact. So I talk about, the taking responsibility for your own emotions. And oftentimes, as an example, you might say to your child, oh, you make me so mad. Or, when you did that, that really upset me. Those statements are pushing your emotions, that are saying that your child's behavior is controlling your emotion. And that's not fair, because we have a choice. So I talk a lot about the choices that we have and the power of choice. We get to define how things, or what things are, how we define them. And it's all defined by like our experiences. There's all kinds of aspects of that. So I talk a lot about, and you can call it mindset, the mental aspects of it, the emotional aspects of it. I talk a lot about that, and that blends into empathy and gratitude and all of these different things that I have done personally. That's why I talk about them, is these are all things that worked for me. I didn't have as much gratitude. I was a yeller. I was upset at my kids for doing X, Y, and Z. And I mean, this just happened the other day. I came home from work. I was extremely overwhelmed and stressed out about a bunch of things going on in my world. And I yelled at my kids. And I immediately stopped. Like, I mean, probably 2 minutes after I was yelling, because it was frustrating. And I took a step back and I said, and right as I was about to talk, and I was talking calmly, my son says, I know we have to calm down. It's crazy in here. But I said, no. I need to be able to manage my own situation and my own mental fitness so that what you're doing doesn't affect me. And immediately upon saying that, I felt better because I took responsibility for me yelling. It was me getting upset. It was my emotions. I was stressed out about something. I wanted to come home to a quiet house. It was not quiet. And I was frustrated. Now, the difference is that probably more than that, 6 years ago, I would have continued to yell, gotten upset, probably had an argument with my wife, and then went upstairs. That would have been the difference. The difference here is that the work that I've done and how I teach is, well, wait a second. Why am I getting so upset at this is going through myself in my head. Why am I getting so upset at my children? Yes, what they're doing is annoying. They're being loud at dinner. But that doesn't mean that I need to yell. And this is like a conversation that I'll have within 30 seconds in my head. And then I calmly will be able to say, guys, and I was talking to both my kids and I just said, listen, here's what's going on. I've got this, and this, and I shouldn't have yelled at you. And, hey, I do think that you're being a little rowdy, it's disrespectful, but at the same time, that shouldn't affect my behavior. And that is what I teach. The ability to do that is so powerful that you feel like a superhero because you can go into any of these situations and I can change my state. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't go into it and immediately I might have anger, stress, anxiety, overwhelm, whatever, but it doesn't last long. I'm able to get over it. I recognize it. I'm able to fix the situation and change it and take responsibility for it and go, why am I feeling that way? Oh, well, it's because this, and this happened. And that immediately also makes it comforting for my children to know, like, oh, dad had a rough day. Like, that's not our fault. Because they're not responsible. They could be jumping off the walls and doing that. I have a decision of how I want to handle that. And that is the power of mindfulness and your mindset. And being able to do that, that's the superpower.
I call it little red wagon. So we all have our little red wagons that we take with us. We take it to, our commute to work, and we take it back home, and we have all of our things in that little red wagon. And so I would always teach that, you come into work, sure, maybe the babysitter was late, so there's a box labeled babysitter was late. Maybe the car didn't start, so there's a box. And so you're bringing all those things in your little red wagon into work, and You're already stressed out before you even walked into work. So that's what I'm hearing from you is you're already stressed out. You come into a situation when I would always say to people, leave your little red wagon outside. Just leave it outside. Come in.
Well, I talk to myself about leaving the wagon outside, but I always, for some reason, the wagon is tied to my back. It's, in fact, I will on my drive home talk to myself, but willpower doesn't work for me,
Oh yeah, I agree.
But I love your analogy. It's very true. That is the problem is I got to figure out how to, unbuckle the wagon from my back. Because it sticks with me. And so for me, that's where I've had to just take the responsibility and say, gosh, I could have handled that better. And what I notice is that when I do these things, of course, my kids do the same thing. My children will get upset, yell, it's over. They come back in and say, you know what? I should have handled that better. I'm sorry for yelling at you, Dad. It's not that you don't ever yell. It's not that you don't ever get upset and have anger and anxiety and stress, all the things but you learn that it doesn't serve you, and you take that responsibility and accept it and say, okay, I'm going to move on now. and I've got some outside my office is some trees being cut down, which is nice if you can hear that. So,
That's okay. I usually have a dog barking, but
I know.
Do you have time for a couple more questions, Jason?
I've got it's a couple minutes here. I do have another meeting, but yeah, we just got a couple minutes.
I want to know your take on, I heard this the other day, or actually I read it in a book. It says, instead of saying to your kids, I'm proud of you, say, I'm happy for you.
Yeah, I don't say the happy for you. I say you should be proud of yourself.
I say that too.
Yeah. So the in fact, I've got videos about that. That's in my program as well. It's being proud is, that's okay to have that feeling, but verbalizing it is a mistake. And it's external. It's external praise that you don't want your children to have. In other words, you do not want your children to be dependent on you being proud. You should be proud unconditionally. So, I mean, if you feel forced or you have to say that you're proud, you say, I'm proud of you no matter what. I don't care. It doesn't matter what grades you get, how you score the game, doesn't matter even how your behavior is. I'm proud of you and I love you no matter what. But, I don't really even, I may say that, but I don't even think that we say that. It's more of you should be proud of yourself. Look what you just did. Because it's not about you. But so many parents will say, well, it's just, I really want my kids to know that I'm proud of them. And say, why? I mean, if you want them to know, just say that you're proud of them no matter what. It has nothing to do with what they accomplish. You're proud because they're your child. So yeah, I talk a lot about that actually.
All right. Before I give you the last question, how can our listeners know more about Jason and know more about Dad's University?
Yeah, so the best is probably the website, daduniversity.com. Has a link there to the program, also our YouTube channel. A lot of, most of the videos we put up are YouTube. But yeah, if someone wants to go deeper and learn a little more and go through a pretty intensive curriculum and coaching and such, they can click on the program, and it's probably the best way.
All right, Jason. So for 2021, the last question I've been using, and I think this is really apropos because you are a podcast host as well. So here's the question, Jason. If you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
How could you be a better father?
So how could you?
Oh, so you're going to actually ask it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of ways actually. I don't, one of the things, and I just did a video about this was the idea, like, as I'm saying, is I still yelled at my kids. So one of the things I think the way that I could be a better father is accepting my faults. We all make mistakes. We all, strive to be good fathers. And that's a lot of the battle, is just the fact that you're striving for that. And so, for me, I think that's how I could be better, was by, accepting the times where I'm maybe not the best dad, where I fall short, because I get very upset at that. And especially, I'm doing this podcast and the videos and such, but the truth is it's not an easy thing. Being a father is not easy. And so, and I wanted to make sure I express that to people. There's no facade. Life is not perfect. There are things happening. There are lives, interacting that make things difficult. And so for me, I think it is just accepting the fact that I'm going to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes, and I just learn from them. So I think sometimes I'm a little bit harsh on myself, and probably could ease up a little bit on that.
I think as humans, we are usually our worst critics.
Yeah. A lot of people see that as a positive, like, well, I'm really tough on myself. And it's like, that hasn't served me well in many aspects. I can strive to be better and be good and stuff, but being harsh to myself is not a good thing. That's where you do have to, you can want and you can strive and you can be ambitious, but you don't need to be harsh. That's the part that I think that I'm still working on.
Well, if you say you're not using it in this sense, but if you're using negative self-talk,
right,
it's not going to help you. You're going to end up no gratitude, more depression.
Yeah, for sure. It's, and I'll do that where, literally I'll say, I only got 3 videos out this week. Like only like the normal human doesn't do that.
Exactly.
And and instead saying, wow, like we got out 3 videos this week. Granted, it was probably mostly Jimmy who did all the work, but still.
Jimmy's a good guy. I've heard that.
And so he probably did the majority of that work, but still the fact that we got that work out, we got it out. It's instead of saying, well, I should have gotten 5, So I think a lot of times I need to take a step back and say, I need to be more self-accepting in that aspect. And heck, where I was years ago, I am light years ahead, but we still have, some ways to go.
Well, Jason, I appreciate your time. I appreciate, giving you the short notice. And I appreciate Jimmy's time too for getting everything set up for you.
He just waved. Yeah.
I'm waving back. But you can't see me. Jason, thank you. Thank you. For sure. Thank you for all the work you're doing with Dad's University. And I look forward to having another conversation or 4 with you. And hopefully the next time I'm in Cali, we can sit down and.
Sounds good.
I'd say do some yoga, but my back.
Yeah, well, we can do yoga near the beach. That's what
okay.
That's what people do around here. And then you meditate for a while, and then you go have a green drink. So.
I'm sorry, I don't drink green wine. I prefer mine red.
There you go. Well, have a great day or weekend, however you're spending it.
Don't forget, before you go, get the book, My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m. Go to the website, mydadsadvicebook.com. Question of the podcast, I forgot. Have a great weekend.